Hi, everybody. Ian Bremmer here, and a quick take to kick off your week. Oceania has always been at war with Eurasia. No, it doesn't matter if you thought something else a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. That was the principal takeaway from Orwell's 1984. And it's what I kept thinking about around this Epstein file that is supposed to be released and now isn't going to be released, and it was a really big deal and now it's not a big deal at all. And supporters of Donald Trump are supposed to go along with what is happening and what they are being told presently. And I don't think that's going to play as easily as a lot of other things. So it's interesting. Now, it is in some ways it's kind of unique, right? I mean, it's different than some of the exaggerations that were made on the campaign trail. Trump said so many times, we're going to get the war, Russia-Ukraine, done in 24 hours. But nobody actually thought he really meant 24 hours when he said that. They knew it was going to take longer. It's kind of a joke between him and the rallying crowds. And furthermore, he did actually try to bring the war to an end when he became president. He failed, but he tried. That was the intention, and he got a lot of ground gained with the Ukrainians and then didn't with the Russians. And now he's angry with Putin, as we're seeing in statements over the weekend and today. So it's not that. And it's not that everything out there that is a conspiracy that's then proven false is something that Trump is at fault for. I mean, you remember when he said he was going to release the RFK and the JFK assassination documents, the classified documents, and so many people that were Trump supporters out there online on the internet, and not just the Alec Joneses, were saying, oh, this is going to be huge, and the CIA has been this massive cover-up. And then we saw all of the files that were declassified, and turned out that there was no evidence of a massive cover-up and no evidence of additional shooters, and we all had to just kind of go on with our normal lives. And then, of course, there are the cover-ups that turn out to really be about something like COVID, and the fact that indeed it looks very likely that COVID did come from a lab in Wuhan and China, and not that the Chinese were actively trying to weaponize a virus that would kill lots of people, but rather they were engaged in this gain-of-function research, and they didn't have adequate controls, and that's how it escaped. And there were plenty of people in the Biden administration, plenty of people in the media that were doing everything they could to disparage and undermine and not cover those that were saying, hey, a lab leak is something we should really explore. And turns out, actually, no, they were wrong. They were lying. And they were expressing confidence that they really didn't have. And I absolutely blame Fauci and others for that. And good that that information has come out. But this is something different. This is something where for a very long time, Trump and many supporters have been saying that the Epstein files are the deep state, and they are covering up all of this horrible behavior of pedophilia and human trafficking. And senior Democrats are going to be, that's why they're not putting it out. And this is all about them. And I'm president. If I win, I'm going to put this out. And he has senior folks, including those that are running the FBI and intelligence around this, the case around this, whether it was Pam Bondi, who said that she has the files on her desk and they're going to be released, and Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, all talking about how important it is and that this has to be released. And now they're saying, actually, there are no such files, no such client list, according to Pam Bondi. And Trump saying, no, there is a list. There is a file, but the file was actually put together by the Democrats, by Biden, by Obama, by Hillary Clinton, by others. And just like the Russia files and Steele, Christopher Steele, it was just meant to make Trump look bad. And so they're not going to put any of this out, and his supporters should move on to something else. And that is not credible. First of all, on its face, if this was a file that was put together by the Democrats, as Trump is suggesting, then why wouldn't they have released it to undermine Trump during the campaign when they were failing and they desperately needed something to stop him from winning as president? And the answer is because he's lying, because they did no such thing. And he is hoping that his people will just believe him and believe his information environment and move on. But the problem is that there are a lot of people, not most Americans. Most Americans do not care about the Epstein files. They really don't. It's not going to affect their daily lives. But a lot of true MAGA supporters, his strongest, most consistent, most online, most susceptible to conspiracy theories, most willing to listen to the people that have driven the Epstein gate and everything around it relentlessly. These are people that really believed in this. And they really believed that this was a cover up by the deep state and that Trump was the guy who was anti deep state and would bring justice, not a two-tier system of justice. And okay, Trump can do what he wants because he's a big middle finger to the establishment. But the other people involved, they were finally going to see justice after years and years and multiple administrations of cover up. And that is now not happening. And it looks quite likely that Dan Bongino is going to resign. And if he does, I don't expect he's going to be quiet. He's a very public figure. He's very angry and very disturbed about this. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he goes on board with Elon and starts relentlessly banging the drum that this is something that needs to be exposed. The fact that Elon has now been on this on multiple occasions makes me feel like he's not going to give it up, at least not as long as he has decided that Trump is an adversary as opposed to a Confederate. And I see Tucker Carlson out there talking about that this was actually a cover-up by the Israelis and that Epstein was paid by the Israeli government. And that's the problem here. And there's no evidence, direct evidence for the cover-up, but there is a lot of anger about Trump having a very different perspective on Israel. And this is right down Steve Bannon's lane as well, and a lot of the beating heart of MAGA, that you want to end wars, and you want America first, but Israel is the big exception. They get all of the money. They have under Biden. They had under Trump first term. They did under Obama. Why are they continuing to get all this aid when they're so rich? Why are they driving the United States into a war in Iran that the Americans shouldn't be more involved in the Middle East? And so we're seeing a lot of that as well. And that is a real divide inside supporters of Trump. And I think it was very interesting that, Trump's response to all of this, the right thing to do would have been let Bondi handle it, let someone else take the fall, and just stay away from it. But instead, there was this incredible, hey, men and women that support me, you guys are going crazy over this. There's nothing there. And what you think is there is actually created by the Democrats. Trump has enormous support, right? He owns the Republican Party. They're all incredibly scared to go against him. They'll say plenty of things privately that they won't utter a word of publicly about how much they dislike him and how he's doing things that they don't agree with, but they're not going to say it. A lot of American allies, same thing. I hear this from the Europeans all the time. I hear it from Asian allies all the time. He's in a uniquely powerful position in the United States, more powerful than any U.S. president in modern history. He has accomplished that on the back of an extraordinary, again, an unprecedented in history, in American history, political comeback after January 6th and 2 impeachments and all of these investigations and a convicted felon. And he comes back and he wins the electoral and the popular vote. And this is a man that does not need to be insecure about anything, and yet he's acting incredibly insecure and vulnerable specifically on this issue. And so I think, as much as I don't think Epstein matters geopolitically at all, and I don't think it's a major policy issue, and I don't think it's something we need to spend a lot of time on for those of us that are concerned day to day about policy, but actually for Trump himself and for his supporters, I think it really does matter. And I don't think it's going to go away. And I think it is a vulnerability that he has to find a better way to address than he has. And maybe that means just releasing the files and letting the chips fall where they may. And a bunch of Democrats get hit, and a bunch of Republicans do too. And that's fine, right? I mean, it's not like Trump is going to jail, and he can actually, if he wants to, declare that all of these people should be pardoned because they're friends of his and no harm done. Go for it, right? At the end of the day, that news cycle can play out quickly. But the news cycle where he's telling people that after they had to believe this and now they can't, feels like a cover-up for people that are already oriented to believe that there is a deep state and there's a cover-up. And that is something that is not easy to put to bed. Of course, especially because that's what he's won on now for 2, however improbable, elections. So that's where we are. I hope everyone's doing well, and I'll talk to you all real soon.